Good morning. Today we're going to work on my 2001 Chevy Silverado. We have an illumination problem. The HVAC controls have no lights in them at nighttime at all. So we're going to pull this bezel off, we're going to pull this HVAC control unit out, and the bulbs in here are actually soldered onto the board. So we're going to have to unsolder the bulbs, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first step is basically this bezel that covers all the gauges. You basically just grab it and pull, and the whole bezel comes off. You got to drop this at a park to get it past the shift lever, and probably drop the steering wheel tilt to get it past the steering column. But then once I get that off, I'll show you how you get the HVAC controls out. All right, I got the dash bezel off. Now it's just these two 7mm screws on either side of the HVAC control. Pull those out, and then there's clips here. Just pinch down on these two clips to the left, same thing on the right, and the HVAC control comes out. And then there's two connectors back there you just have to pull off, and you got that free. The next operation is to actually pull this apart, pull the knobs off, and get at the soldered bulbs. All right, we're going to take apart the HVAC controls from my 2001 Chevy Silverado. These were used in the GM800T series trucks. It was actually the first generation of the Silverado, but it was used from '99 to '06, I believe, and it was used in everything from the Silverado, the Tahoe, the Suburban, GMC Sierra, Cadillac Escalade, Chevy Avalanche, on and on. There's probably millions of these things out on the road, and the illumination went out, and the bulbs are actually soldered in place. There's 3 bulbs for the backlight, and then there's 3 bulbs for the actual dial indicators, and they've all blown out on this part. So we're going to pull it apart. Basically, 1/4-inch socket. There's 4 screws that you remove. This control, so you got to pull the knobs off. That's the first thing you got to do, is pull the knobs off. And interesting that this module here is the fan speed control. It's not integrated into the unit. It's actually a separate bolt-on piece. You don't have to remove this. If you just pull the knob off, this will stay with the back, and the back will come off as well. So let me show you that. First step is to remove the knobs. I actually I cut some tips out of my gloves, and I'm going to cover the points of the wrench here so that I don't mar up the rubber on the dials. So give me a second. All right, got my rubber glove tips on. Basically, you just grab the knob and pull. Something to watch out for is there's a little friction clip. This little tiny, where are you? This little, it's like a friction insert that goes inside the knob, between the knob and the shaft. Don't lose those, they're very important, and you have to pull them off. If they stay on the shaft, you got to pull them off, because you won't be able to get the shaft out without them, and that's typically when they fall off, is when you go to pull the backing off and you forget about those. So here we are, second knob. Surprising how much force it takes to get those off. And see, this one's got the little friction insert still inside. And last but not least, the fan speed control. Oh my goodness, just stand up and do this. There we go. Again, surprising amount of force is needed to get those off, but you don't want to mar up the rubber grip. Okay, we've got those off. Next is we go after the 1/4-inch, the 4 1/4-inch screws, bolts that hold the backing plate on. Two of them are marked with red. That's just a, I guess, a quality check to make sure that they're tight, or maybe an anti-loosen coating. Okay, notice one of my tabs busted off here. This is typical of an old car that's been out in the heat and the sun. So now the 2 parts come in half, and we've got, you can clearly see, well, there's actually 4 bulbs. I'm sorry, I said 3 earlier. There's 4 bulbs for the backlight. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are all clearly blown. And then the dial indicator bulbs I haven't found yet. I suspect that they're behind here. We'll have to see. So the next thing we need to do is to be able to get at the back of these bulbs, we have to pull the PC board out of the housing, and that's just, there's these little retainers here that have to be depressed. So you basically just, can you see that? Well, it's actually, you can see the ones up top here better. So you just depress this, whoop, and you break it off. Again, old plastic, been out in the heat and the sun for 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. And we're going to have to use a little JB Weld when this goes back together. I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom ones. Unfortunately, every one of them is broken off. Yep, look at that. Now, she comes off. And you can get at the back of the bulbs now with the solder. So let me try to figure out where these other bulbs are for the dial indicators. And we'll get my soldering iron heated up and show you how that works. So I found the other bulbs. So yeah, they're behind this lower panel. There were 2 1/4-inch screws holding this panel in. Peel this panel back, and there they are. There's 1, 2, 3 tiny bulbs for the dial indicators. So let me go warm up my soldering iron and get the new bulbs, and we'll pull these bulbs out. Back. Right, the new bulbs, they're marked 6 volt for the backlighting, and then the dial indicators are these tiny little bulbs. They're not marked with the voltage that I can see, but I'm assuming they're 6 volts as well. I bought them from this guy. He's a retail seller, and he sells on eBay. So I'll put a link in the description for his eBay listing. It was like 20 bucks for these bulbs, and I don't know if you can buy them from a GM dealer or not, but I just bought them from eBay. And let's get my soldering iron heated up and get these bulbs out. Got my soldering iron all heated and my solder sucker ready. So we're going to go after the first bulb. You just basically find the solder joint behind the bulb. Heat up the joint. Suck the solder off. Oh, I gotta reload. I need a semi-automatic solder sucker. Now that bulb should come out. Ta-da! Easy as that. And now we're going to put the new one in. It's an incandescent bulb, so the polarity does not matter. If you're upgrading to LEDs, the polarity does matter, so you would have to contend with that. So there we go. Back up this bulb a bit with something. Actually, I'll use the. There we go. So the bulb is nice and seated properly. There we go. And now we're going to get some new solder. Season the tip, and boom. Oh, that's a big one. Not the prettiest solder joint, but it'll work. That bulb's not seated all the way. I'm just going to heat these up, and there we go. There we go. All right, I'm going to do that 3 more times, or 2 more times, and then we'll attack the small ones. All right, I got the big bulbs all soldered in here, and just like anything else in life, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So my last solder joint looks much better than my first one. So those are all in. The next step we have to do is cut off the legs. These are too long, so now that it's cool, the solder's all solidified, we'll cut those off. And then I went on to do the very small bulbs on this panel. And the new bulbs did not come with a socket. So the old bulbs have, as you can see, these are the old bulbs, have a socket. The new bulb does not have a socket. I tried to reuse the old sockets. So this is an old socket. I tried to remove the bulb from the socket and it broke. I just couldn't do it. So I'm just going to solder them in without a socket and see what happens. So let me continue on soldering these little bulbs, and then we'll reassemble. I got all my bulbs in. Found something interesting. So the kit came with 4 big bulbs for the backlight, and then 4 small bulbs for the lower panel where the AC and the recirc and the fresh are. And but I only have 3 on this board. So 1, 2, 3. This one is a spot for a bulb, but it's blank. So I think what that is on the unit here, you've got your fresh, your recirc, your AC, and then I think this is for like automatic climate control that the vehicle doesn't have as an option. So they left that bulb out, but the kit came with it. So this also covers vehicles with automatic climate control. So now that we got our bulbs in, I want to do a continuity check to make sure that the bulbs are actually soldered in correctly and are making good contact and are actually in good shape before I screw this thing back together. So if we just trace the wires back, this is our common ground to all, and boom, there we go. We've got continuity through all of the small bulbs. If I check my positive, same thing. And of course, because this is one complete circuit, we're going to have continuity check on all bulbs. So we're good there. I'm going to flip this over and do the same continuity check on the larger bulbs. Just got to trace the circuit here. So this is our ground. And we should have, yep. And good. And then our positive. Yep. So we're all good. So we're going to screw this back together. I'm probably going to use, remember those clips broke, I'm probably just going to use some silicone sealant in there to hold it. I don't want, JB Weld is too permanent. If I ever have to go back in here, the JB Weld is going to be a nightmare to get apart. So I'll probably just use some silicone sealant, some window and tub caulking to keep this in place. It's also a good insulator, so nothing will short out. So I just got to trim my excess wires and reassemble. When reassembling, remember these friction shoulder things that you put them in the knob first. Don't put them on the shaft. It would be very difficult to align if you put them on the shaft first. So they go in the knob like that. Make sure that they're all in place and seated before we press the knobs back on. And then I've got the unit bolted back together. And they're all interchangeable. The knobs don't matter where they go. And then we just push. You got to make sure they're aligned. There's a notch. There's a flat that you have to align on the shaft. I'm actually gonna see if this one fits a little better here. Shouldn't be that hard to push. There we go. And last but not least, there we go. We're ready to reinstall. All right, we're back out at the truck. Got our 2 connectors here for the HVAC. Plug them in and see if this thing works. So bright sunny morning here, so I don't know if we're going to be able to see these lights in this bright sunlight. We'll see. Gotta be real careful, this old brittle plastic. There we go. Let's see. Yep. Look at that. Yep, they all work. Excellent. All right, now we basically sneak this guy behind here. Clips into place. 4 clips, 2 screws. Surprised this whole dashboard is put together with these long screws. I'm surprised they're so long. I guess when they engineered this thing, they had to design all the clearances so that the screws wouldn't protrude into anything. It's nice that GM used, they're all 7mm, and they're all the same screw, so it's kind of nice. You don't have to pay attention to what screws go where. Also pretty neat, I just changed the radio. This radio was in my Liberty when I bought it, and I upgraded the Liberty radio, and the radio in here was kind of crappy, so this Alpine's a little bit better than the one that was in here, so I swapped out the radio. The radio is actually just clipped into place. There's no screws holding it on at all. You know, I've never considered myself a truck person, but I'm really enjoying this truck. Okay, that's that. Now we just got to snap the bezel on. See if I can get a video of that. All right, first step is we got to get the shift lever out of the way and the steering column tilted all the way down. So we're going to just turn the ignition on, apply the brake, go all the way down to low. Oh, in 2019. Radio. And then I'll grab the bezel. You have to finagle it around the steering column here. It's kind of a pain. Chuck this back here. There we go. And now we line up the little tabs. There's actually some alignment dowels you have to be aware of. Another one. There we go. Oh, that's not right. There she is. My phone mount here. I like these. These are Pro Clips with the Scotch kit magnet. I really like those. I have them in all my vehicles. And that seems to be it. Yep. And that's it. Let's make sure they still work. Yep. Excellent. All right. Job complete. See you next time. Here's a follow-up segment to show you at nighttime what the HVAC illumination looks like working. See you next time.